My name's Kelsey. I am one of the dementia care specialists for La Crosse County, and I work out of the Aging and Disability Resource Center. I'm going to tell you more about the Aging and Disability Resource Center and the role of the dementia care specialist. This is what we're going to talk about, the ADRC, the DCS. So I'm going to throw out those acronyms right away. ADRC is Aging and Disability Resource Center. DCS is what they call me, dementia care specialist. But it's more than just a person, it's a program. And La Crosse County, I have to brag on us, we now have 2 dementia care specialists, which is the envy of the state because most counties only have 1 or half of 1. So for us to have 2 shows that our county is invested in this cause, knows that this is a really important topic, very future thinking, and also means that while we already have great resources, we can have even more resources for those people affected by dementia, cognitive loss, and their caregivers. And then I'm going to talk about caring for your brain, give you some prevention tips and lifestyle tips, and then some community resources, which some people have already navigated to the back. There's a few flyers back there. There are a few like gift bag things that were left over from another program, so I'll let you arm wrestle for who takes those. Because there definitely are not enough for everybody. That's what we're going to talk about today. If you have questions, certainly we can take them during the program, or you can just wait until the end. So how many of you have heard of the Aging and Disability Resource Center? That's good. How many of you have utilized the ADRC? All right, so we need a few more hands in that category. Just so you know, ADRCs are unique to Wisconsin. There is one in every county. So if you move, you can still access the ADRC. Illinois and Minnesota have a senior line that you kind of call, and then they send you out to the individual agencies. But we are your one-stop shop for all things information assistance related to aging and disabilities. And we used to put, at the top, the entry point into the long-term care programs, public funds. But really, we're more than that. That's kind of where our stigma ends is, well, if I'm not aging or I don't have a disability or I don't need money, then what do they have for me? We have wellness and prevention classes. We partner with community agencies. We have our nutrition program, transportation, really big today, caregiver support, the dementia care specialist programs there. And then I just want to point out too, we're unbiased. We're kind of like Google. So if you come in, and you ask us a question, we're not just going to tell you whoever's paying us to tell you that, like Google does. We're going to also not tell you what maybe we told your neighbor. We're going to tell you about what you need, what is accessible to you based on your needs and your situation. So sometimes people are like, well, why didn't I get what my neighbor got or what my friend said or whatever? It's because we take a look at you and your specific situation and give you the available resources for you, and not, it's customized. And again, not just one option, it's all of the options in the community. The Dementia Care Specialist Program, we are about creating dementia-friendly community. So it's kind of like, think where mental illness and mental health stigma was years ago, where people weren't talking about it, people were not very accepting of it, and there weren't very many resources. That's where we're kind of at with the dementia-friendly community. And it kind of is sad that we even have to start there, because we should be a dementia-positive community and a dementia-capable community, but we have to start smaller, because how many of you think positive when you hear the word dementia? Not very many people do. They actually, when I tell people what I do, they go, it's really sad. And I go, well, that's really sad that you think that. That's the problem. So really anything changing, challenging stigma, informing people, which is all what we're going to talk about today, empowering you with tools, equipping you with brain health so that you can have a slight mind shift in that. I don't want you to like run out of the room asking for dementia, but I want you to be like, okay, if this is something that impacts our family or impacts me, I'm going to be okay. Supporting caregivers and people that live with cognitive concerns or dementia diagnoses. And you don't have to have a diagnosis to work with us. We don't, make you show us your papers at the door. if you're exhibiting symptoms or struggling, we can help you. And building dementia capable staff and systems. So while there's 2 of us now, we can handle more cases per se. The fact is our staff actually deal more with families and people with dementia than we do, because we are only 2 people and there are many more of them affected. So over 70% of people live in the community with dementia. So that's why we're not in the medical clinic system. We are attached to the community because the medical clinic system is its own thing that needs to get sorted out with the dementia community. But where are the people living? We often think of dementia as end stage, nursing home care, whatever. But what were those people doing all those years prior to that placement? They were living out here. So that's really where our focus is. So poor brain health is more serious than you think. It's actually a silent public health epidemic. And I don't know if any of you are big advocates, but anytime you call officials or interact with public health, I would love it if you would ask them why we're not doing anything about it. Why are we not talking about it? I'll even say your doctor, tell them the blonde-haired lady told you to do it. When you go to your annual wellness check, are they asking you about your brain health? And they shouldn't just be waiting until you're 65. There are plenty of people prior to 65 who are affected by this, but it's a good start. So if your doctor doesn't ask you about your cognition, memory, sometimes is how they phrase it, tell them that they should be, because it is required at your annual Medicare wellness check. Alzheimer's disease actually kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. Most people don't know that. A woman's estimated lifetime risk of developing Alzheimer's disease at age 65 is 1 in 6, and that's compared to 1 in 11 for breast cancer. And how many of us know our risk for breast cancer? How many of us are screened? How many of us are talked to about that? All of us. We're not being talked to about Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death, the only one in the top 10 that can't be prevented, cured, or slowed, which is why it has so much stigma. And I'll have a little caveat: if you follow the news, there are treatments out there, but let me tell you, they are for a very select few and a very early few. And so if we are so scared to even go and talk to the doctor about our brain health or our slipping memory, we probably aren't going to be eligible for those treatments if and when they are approved, or that they're cost effective. And then this is what we're talking about today. There's growing scientific evidence that healthy behaviors may reduce your risk for cognitive decline and possibly dementia. And I don't know if I have this on a future slide, but they are actually saying that dementia, diseases that cause dementia, because I'm going to define what dementia is here, are being considered, based on this new growing body of evidence, are being considered preventable, like heart disease, like other instances. And it has nothing to do with, again, our curing or slowing or medications. It's all in what I'm going to talk to today. So I don't know if that is encouraging or frustrating, because it's the long, slow way to brain health. It's nothing that you probably haven't heard before, but it keeps me up at night thinking, why don't people know this, and why aren't we talking about it if it can be potentially prevented through what we're going to talk about today, our brain health. So before we can talk about brain health, we always have to define what dementia is, to kind of make the case for what we're trying to avoid here, what we're trying to prevent. So dementia is an umbrella term. So if you think of dementia as an umbrella, and all of the things that cause dementia-like symptoms falling below it, so things like Alzheimer's disease, which I've already talked about, vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia. If you've heard of Bruce Willis, that's what he has. Lewy body dementia. If you know who Robin Williams was, that's what he had. All of those and other dementias fall under this umbrella. So dementia is a term for a collection of symptoms that cause a decline in a previous higher functioning, and dementia is not normal. So as we age, things wear out, so I'm told. Things like our physical bodies, maybe our hearing, our eyesight. The same thing happens to our brains. As we get older, they just generally start to slow down, but not to the point that it impacts your life so severely that it is considered dementia. Dementia is not normal and it interferes with daily living. It impairs memory, which is what we often think of, but not just memory. The frontotemporals and Lewy body dementias have things like impaired judgment, personality changes, inability to perform daily tasks, follow, process. Sometimes speech is affected. And so if you leave here with anything about dementia, it's not just memory loss and it's not normal. Remember those two things. So why care for your brain? It's part of your healthy living. And so I have little kiddos. I have 8, 5, and a 2-year-old, and they know that when we talk about healthy living, that it incorporates their brain. And all through growing up, I don't know if that was ever talked to you in that way. It was usually like, you got to stay physically active. You have to, eat well and have a good balance when we talk about healthy living. So changing even just that education, and when we talk about a healthy lifestyle, what are we really trying to be healthy for? We should include our brains, because you can have really good healthy lungs, you can have a healthy heart, you can have a healthy diet, be physically able to walk here and there, but if your brain isn't healthy, nothing is going to work eventually, because your brain controls everything. Your brain is what's telling you to walk. Your brain is what's telling you to breathe. So to me, and this is probably the only thing I'm biased on, your brain is the most important health of all, because it controls everything. Your brain is busy. When you think, when you see, when you move. Right now, I wish I could connect you all to a little electrode and watch what your brains are doing, but they are firing on all accounts right now, either judging me or taking the information in. Your brains are about 3 pounds. They work 24/7, and they're doing things without us even knowing it, which is what's incredible too. So, essentials to a brain healthy lifestyle. And this is where hopefully no one walks out, because like I said, it's nothing that you haven't already been told. It's just reiterating it and reframing it in a way that hopefully is more convincing than just saying you need to be physically active. So a brain healthy lifestyle encompasses physical activity, socialization, mental stimulation, spiritual and emotional health, and nutrition. All things we know about, all things we have been told that are good for us, but maybe they haven't been told to us in a way that, again, if we're doing these things, we can potentially be preventing age-related cognitive decline or dementias. So I'm going to go through each one of those as to what am I talking about in terms of physical activity. So for physical activity, for your brain, it's recommended that you get about 30 minutes of physical activity 5 to 7 days a week. And any physical activity. It doesn't have to be rigorous. Walking, dancing, working in the garden. I don't have up there, but cleaning your house. What I like to tell people as it relates to physical activity is the goal is moving oxygen-rich blood to and through your brain. So right now, as you're sitting, blood is, just slowly pumping through your body, but will start to pool and not be very oxygen-rich if you're not getting more oxygen into the bloodstream. But it also isn't moving through in your body at a rate that it would be if you all, put your arms up and kicked out your legs. So when you think about physical activity in terms of your brain health and not what we have been told, you need for your heart and your physical body, I just want you to think about, how am I going to get blood to my brain today? Oxygen-rich blood to my brain today. And if that is just standing up and down 10 times off your couch and you're breathing and you can feel your heart pumping, that's getting your brain health physical activity in. Now you might have to do that a few times to get 30 minutes out of the day, but think about parking a little bit further away, or if mobility is an issue, again, moving your arms while you're watching that TV. Maybe get rid of the streaming services so we go back to commercials. Oh wait, streaming services now have commercials. So anytime there's commercials, move. Move something. 30 minutes a day. That could be 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. to me, that's less overwhelming than, you know, you need to be running, doing aerobic exercises 5 days a week, you know, for an hour and a half. The other thing I'll point out with physical activity is the strength. It's kind of like miracle grow for your brain if you're adding resistance training. So anything with weightlifting has an added benefit. So maybe if you're not into the walking or the you know, elliptical, maybe swimming would be better, but anything that's going to give you resistance. So weights, you know, lifting weights a few times, using soup cans, pushing things, rearrange your furniture. Anything that's creating resistance is good for your muscles. Socialization. So isolation and loneliness have negative effects on our brain. And I'm really not looking forward to, but looking forward to the science, the data that's going to come out from our 2020 brain damage that we did when we were isolating and apart from each other. Socialization is actually really important. So the other thing is, it's not about the size of your circle. You don't have to have 20 friends. I'm not talking about multiple social partners. I'm talking about rich, engaging, ongoing social activities. So being part of groups or social organizations in your community. So what you're doing today is brain health. So give yourself a round of applause, because coming here is a social event. And then just making sure that you're maintaining and continuing to build friendships throughout your family networks. I think it's no surprise, the older you get, the more family you lose, the more friends you lose. And when we start to talk to people in their 90s, they don't have any more friends. And that's probably because they disconnected from those social networks long ago, where now they don't have new friends. And maybe you want to get a few younger friends to keep with you throughout your life. But maintaining and continuing to build those friends and family networks, because what you have today might not be what you have, you know, tomorrow. Developing hobbies that incorporate social aspects. And the importance of what happens in a social environment is you're reading people's facial expressions, you're responding, you know, in the moment. Your brain has to do a lot of work when you're engaging with people. It's filtering, you know, what I shouldn't say, or it's telling you, you know, socially appropriate behaviors. There's a lot of cognitive activity going on in a social environment, whereas when you're by yourself, you don't have that. Language that we use when we're engaging with people. So mental stimulation or cognitive activity, this is probably what everybody thought we were going to talk about when we talk about brain health. So that's the other piece. If you can remember what I first wanted you to remember: dementia, not normal aging, and it impairs your ability to function in everyday life more than memory loss. The other one is that brain health is not just brain games and puzzles. It was physical activity, socialization. Now we'll talk about the cognitive stimulation piece. I'm not discounting crossword puzzles or, you know, regular puzzles, memory training things, but I want you to really think about what this category is. It's anything that is making your brain create new connections, learning new information. So again, you're kind of double dipping today. You're socializing and you're learning new information. And right now I just flooded you with a bunch of facts and a bunch of new information. So you're really learning. But things like learning a new language, I had on here, send a letter, and I put the old fashioned way, and I was like, these people know what I'm talking about. But writing a physical letter is a very good cognitive activity. Cursive writing, you know, we're taking that, it's not mainstream everywhere, but it is being taken out of some schools. That's a cognitive activity. What are we doing to kids' brains when they're not learning that? Learning something new, continuing, you know, to do your board games, your puzzles. Travel is great because you're planning, you're, you know, executing reservations. Musical instruments are great cognitive activity. Classical music, problem solving, and then education. You can proctor classes at any of our universities. Our libraries have wonderful programs to stimulate your mind and learn new information. So this is the one where I say, if it's hard and frustrating, keep doing it. It means that your brain is learning something. If you think back to when we're babies, what do we do to help babies develop and grow their brains? We give them lots of sensory experiences. We repeat things for them. We break things down until they get good at it. And none of us were good at walking. None of us were good at talking. None of us could even use the bathroom. All of those things was small inputs of cognitive activity to stimulate those connections. Somewhere along the line, as we age, we stop doing that. So this is the get back into, you know, that childhood spirit, that academic learning, and just do something new. And if it's frustrating because it's hard, it means that your brain needs to work on that pathway. Do it until it's not hard, and then do something new. So if you're a big puzzle person, I don't know how large the pieces go up to, but if you're doing 500s and that's where you're at, get the 1,000 and challenge yourself. I don't know what they go up to any higher than 1,000, but if you're doing, you know, the crosswords that the Tribune puts out or whatever, you might have to find a book that has harder ones. Repetition, if it's easy, means that we're kind of on autopilot. So you might have to take a little bit of a crossword break and do a little Sudoku, or you might have to take a little puzzle break and do, I don't know, try crocheting. Learn something new is what I'm talking about for this. So this one actually is more overwhelming to me than the physical activity one, because this is the one where if you truly want to stimulate your brain, it has to be new. And, you know, if anyone has taken the Boost Your Brain and Memory class, we talk about neurons that fire together, wire together, and pathways can become very ingrained in your brain. So if you know how to drive home and you get there and you go, how did I get here? That's your brain on autopilot. I have a way to stimulate or a way to incorporate this later, so I'm not going to share that example, but this is the one that's probably the hardest for people to get used to, because it's like, well, read a different genre. Read you know, if you don't like reading more than 200-page books, get the 500-page book. I don't know. You gotta mix it up, and not every day. I mean, mix it up for a season. Mix it up for a year. So right after I talk about keep doing something until it frustrates you, then I talk about your spiritual and your emotional health. So this one is probably kind of new and almost like a buzzword in the health and fitness arena of this yoga and meditation. And a lot of people don't like doing this stuff. And I think it's getting even harder for younger generations to do this stuff. So they're really two separate categories, but they're highly correlated. So I kind of put them together, spiritual and emotional health. So if you're part of a spiritual community, you might have prayers or something along the lines of that. Meditation is a similar practice that you can do if you're not part of that, you know, if you're not connected to a church affiliation. And that's not what spiritual health is. It's just a connection to a higher power or a grounding experience, kind of something outside of yourself is what your spiritual health is. Learning to relax using deep breathing or muscle relaxation, slowing down, not being afraid to say no, practicing mindfulness, managing any underlying emotional conditions, so depression and anxiety, doing things like Tai Chi, yoga, and those would be double dipping into that physical activity. But really what your spiritual and your emotional health is stress is toxic to our brains. And stress can be motivating to get us to do things, but it can also take away from all of the other good things we do. You can be, you know, exercising, eating well, cognitive, you know, you're learning things. But if your schedule is so overwhelming to you that you're always, I say it like you're always on, you're always high, because you have such a demanding schedule and you never pause, that really is counteracting all of those good things you're doing. Our brains need a break. And so sleep is in here. If you don't get good sleep, again, all of the other things you're doing it's not helping your cause. Our brains need to, dump the trash at night, or as you get older, you might need naps. That's okay. I mean, you can easily flip the script of sleeping too much, and that might be kind of in that depression, anxiety zone. But if your body needs to rest, your brain needs to rest, it needs to press pause. A really good check on your stress level. A lot of people tell me they're not stressed, but a really good way to check your stress level is, are you able to practice mindfulness? And that means, are you able to sit in a chair for a minute and just observe what you see and what you hear and what you feel, maybe what you smell? And if that drives you nuts, because this is pointless, my mind is wandering, I'm going here, this is what you need to work on. It takes time to incorporate this into slowing down and being able to just settle and not have negative thoughts come in, or not have, oh, I gotta run that to the post office, and I need to go to the grocery store, and so stopping by. If your mind is racing like that, this is the piece of brain health that you need, that slowing down, pressing pause, and letting it just relax. When you go for a walk and you need to take a rest, and your body just sits in the chair and you feel that relief, how does your brain get that? It's from shutting it off, and we have to intentionally shut our brains off. So noticing things is like mindfulness. You can start with, YouTube videos. I'm sure there's books, there's cards, things you can check out from the library on this, taking classes. It takes a while to get into a good practice, but this is just as important as all those other pieces. And when you think about overall brain health, you can't just pick one of these. You need all of them. So if you're really good at your physical activity, you're really good at the cognitive activity, you got a social circle. If this is the one you're missing, this is the one you should start focusing on. Good nutrition. This one's kind of easy, because what's good for the heart is good for the brain. And we've been told what is good for our hearts. But I'm going to introduce to you a new diet that they call the MIND diet. It's the Mediterranean and DASH intervention for neurodegenerative delay. So what the MIND diet is eating all of the things at the top: greens, veggies, berries, nuts, whole grains, fish, poultry. It even has red wine in there. Limiting all of the things that us Wisconsinites love: butter and cheese and red meat, fried food, sweets. Those are very damaging to our brains, which is not a surprise of why we have such a high incidence of dementia. So this diet, there is information on the back table from Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute. And I don't say like just cut all that out. It says limit. Maybe if you're out to eat, instead of getting the red meat choice, you try the fish. Maybe if you're cooking with butter, you try olive oil. So it's making some swaps. Anytime we talk about nutrition, and I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign, but supplements are out there and they're widely marketed. So good sign, because it means brain health is on the radar. Bad sign, because it's a lot of misinformation. So I like to point out what Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute talks about supplements. So the Federal Trade Commission does have a lawsuit for false advertising. So anything that's saying this is going to, prevent dementia, or is good for neurocognitive decline, they cannot do that. That is wrong. But they will say it enhances your brain power, or, good for memory. So those are things you have to kind of watch out for. But Dr. Carlson is a very well-known researcher, and she's in charge of the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute clinic. says instead of spending your money on supplements that may or may not work, put the money towards your blood pressure medications, put the money towards a pair of walking shoes, put the money towards a class that's gonna, give you learn that new language for the cognitive stimulation, pay a mentor to help you practice mindfulness. Your money is better spent on the things that I just told you than on supplements that are claiming to help your cognition. So what that tells me is the research is not in the easy fix. Your brain health is not going to be a pill, is not going to be a patch, is not going to be a quick fix. Everything I talked about is what it's going to be. It's going to be up to you, which is not what anyone wants to hear. But there's power in that, and it's free. And then Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute does have a list that they've given us. I do want to just point out, before you do anything with supplements or changing diets and whatever, you always want to talk with your doctor, because I don't know what your pre-existing conditions are. I don't know what your lifestyle is. But on the left is all of the supplements that have been debunked in research for curing, stopping, preventing, really enhancing anything about your cognition any more than what we've already talked about will enhance your cognition. The ones that hold more promise are on the right and in the dark. The fish oils, the omega-3s, the Mediterranean diet, and then there's some evidence for the ketogenic diet, but there's also some very scary things about the ketogenic diet. So that's why I said talk to your doctor, because that might be for a small portion population and not for you. But all these things on the left side you might have heard of before, or you see ads for, or it'll come out in a tablespoon of coconut oil will help keep cognitive decline away. Not saying that there isn't any benefit to those things, but if you're going to, again, spend your money on these things, you're probably going to get more benefit from the things that I already talked about, again, as opposed to the pill, the patch, the quick fix. So all of that information, how do you start? This is the goal, the golden ticket. How do I start? So if you're already coming to this, or if this is your first, one, continue to come to Mondays on Main and learn. Sign up for a new class. If you are like, wow, the spiritual emotional health is probably one I need to know. Mindfulness sounds really awful. I don't want to do it. Maybe you should sign up for a mindfulness class. But taking a different route. So when you go home today, don't go the way you always go. Ordering something different off of the menu and try and guess what's in it in terms of spices and seasonings. Listen to music in a different language. Turn the radio to a different language and try and figure out what they're saying. Shop somewhere new. Park in a completely different spot so that when you walk out, this isn't a bad thing. This happens to me and my children. Where did I park? That's not a bad thing. I have to remember and think about, and I'm challenging my brain. Now there's tools you can use to not have that happen. That's a different class too, but it's not a bad thing to make your brain work. It's a bad thing if you don't even know that your brain isn't working, or that you can't retrace your steps to say, oh yeah, I have this car. So just because you forget or misplace something, it just means that you did it in a different way. So park all over the place and run around trying to find your car. And then just tell everyone, I'm just working on my brain health. Brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, putting on your clothes in a different routine. I mean, half of us can probably get dressed in the dark and not even know where things are. Well, set it up in a different array. If you really want to drive yourself a little crazy, move your trash can. How many times do you go over to your trash can and then you're like, oh, it's over here. Do it until the first time you remember, you're like, yes, I created a great new pathway. Or change your clothes, in your dresser. I have the same, ever since I was little, I have the same routine of what order my clothes is in my dresser. I guarantee it would drive me a little nuts and have to create a new routine if I swapped all of those out, but it would challenge my brain. Turning photos upside down and just, trying to make sense of what they are. Learning new skills and don't stop when it gets hard. Again, just keep telling yourself, this is hard, this is frustrating, but it's creating new neurons and new pathways. It must be good for me. Before I go into community resources, why don't we take questions?
What is the ketogenic diet?
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not even going to be I am not the ketogenic diet answerer. I think it's high fat, low carb. I think that's the basic principle of it. But the high fat, so when you look at like the Mind diet, fats are really good for you, but healthy fats like avocados and the coconut oils, the non-saturated fats. But ketogenic diet doesn't matter what kind of fat you're having, and there are some dangerous fats to your heart. And remember what I said, your heart and your brain are very connected. So yeah, I think it's high fat, low carb. And your carbs in your body, I'm not a dietitian, my sister is, but carbs in your body is energy. Your brain needs energy, which is broken down as glucose, sugars in our bodies to function. So people who do, oh, I'm not doing sugar, I don't do any sugar, it's actually detrimental to your brain. So if they experience brain fog, which I have heard of people who are on ketogenic, they're very sluggish, their brain isn't functioning optimally because they're starving their brain of its essential nutrients. Like I said, I think the evidence is for a very small niche group of people who probably aren't like us.
I did the keto diet once because my doctor had advised my son to do it. And so I was helping and put the family on a ketogenic diet. Well, it was working, but I also then developed some digestional problems. I went to the doctor and he's like, I told your son to be on it, not you. Because it's especially hard for women. And it's probably, and I was much younger at the time. That was probably, 30 years ago. So, anyway.
Yeah, talk to your doctor.
Talk to your doctor.
And talk to him about, before you just go sign up for fish oil or omega-3s. There's also supplement, not every supplement is created equal and not everybody's body absorbs it the same. So again, invest in the walking shoes, invest in the class. The other stuff is kind of just wasting your money or you're just eliminating it.
Yeah, keto was off. Is this on? Okay. Keto was often used for weight loss, but the downside of it is people found that you would take off enormous quantities of it, but if ever you ingest more than a few carbs, it comes right back and you don't feel well. You really don't. And you're counting things like, you don't realize how many sugars are in things like apples or berries, and you're counting how many berries you can have. So
yes, and all of those we know are part of a very healthy lifestyle, especially berries, darker, rich foods. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised if you tried to follow the Mind diet. You get to eat lots of things, just not butter. No.
Kelsey, I was wondering if you have any recent literature on such a simple thing to do is to drink water, because our brains really need water, and how easily they can be dehydrated as well as ourselves.
Yeah, I don't have any information to give you like off the top of my head, but yeah, our bodies are 80% water, aren't they? Actually, I think a lot of chronic illnesses could be improved with more water. And if you look at, and I've noticed this in myself, I'm not very old, but the older I get, the less water I want to drink because it doesn't taste as good. And I was like a huge water drinker. So I understand okay, if you don't want to drink water, then how do you flavor the water? And then what's in those flavored drinks that's adversely affecting my health? And when we talk about drinking water in a class, we have a boost your brain and memory class that I'll share. It has to be water. Sometimes we count liquids. Coffee actually is dehydrating. So it has to be water, pure water, maybe with a little lemon.
I have a quick question. When I go in to do my yearly exam, and they always give you like 4 words to remember. And I don't like to be at the doctor anyway, you know, because they tell me I'm overweight and all that kind of stuff. Is that a legitimate test? Because, you know, like last time I forgot one of the words and it started to panic me.
Yeah, it's a good screening tool. And actually on the back table, the ADRC does once a month free brain checks. So you can, you know, ease your worries if you're like, should I be concerned? Those are highly sensitive to like an Alzheimer's disease, which is a very common. Most people who have another type of dementia often develop Alzheimer's disease too. The one thing that I'll say that's doing a disservice to is it is more geared towards memory. So things like personality changes, things like language and processing, you know, understanding sequencing of events or organizing myself, those are missed in that. It's a good first step, but maybe I'm biased in this regard too. We could do better. So the thing is though, people are like, I'm going to study those words and I'm going to pass it every time. Great. Because if you're studying, you're remembering and your brain is, you know, doing that. If you truly have something going on, no amount of studying is going to help you pass that test. So anyone trying to cheat the test, if you truly have something going on, you won't be able to. Your brain will not be able to do that. I've had people who have been diagnosed with like a dementia pass those. So it's a start, it's awareness, it catches the most prevalent form of dementia, but we could do better. We could do better. Both myself and she's a fly on the wall in the back of the room, our second dementia care specialist this year. We can administer a test that, and it's free in the community, so to avoid going to the clinic, but they administer it in the clinic. It's a mild cognitive impairment diagnostic test. We don't diagnose, we don't tell you, you know, we don't interpret the results, but that is a service that our community has too. So if, you know, you're like, I just think something's going on, but it's not being captured on my annual, or I'm noticing things because it's not related to my memory, you can always call and schedule an appointment to go through that test. That's something we have.
You know what services or resources your area?
She asked about Rhinelander area services. What county is that? Oneida, is that what they said? Nikolai. Just look up the Aging and Disability Resource Center of that county that the town is in. Like I said, there's a dementia care specialist in every county. And so we do similar things. They don't all look the same, but brain health is definitely one of the things that we promote and try to get people to understand, because if we're talking about brain health, we can have earlier detection, earlier diagnosis, or early prevention of some of these things. Any questions? I'm just going to share resources. So these are the free brain checkups that we talked about for the rest of the year. We do them March through October annually, and these are great. You can do them once. I mean, you can't be screened too many times. Like I said, you could do it once a month. It's probably not necessary, but once a year is good, or, you know, every couple of years. But the reason we do them on a regular basis and we move around is so that if you're not concerned, but you're like, maybe I should get checked. We call these kind of like a blood pressure check, or any other screenings that you have, those annual screenings that you go to as you age. This is what a brain check is. It doesn't tell you what is going on. And actually, it's more about the conversation that happens around it. We talk about brain health. We talk about maybe if you're having symptoms or you're concerned about something, we can kind of troubleshoot, like, you know, that's normal. That's pretty normal. Or, sounds like you might want to advocate and get some more testing with your doctor. So the reason why they're routine is because they're free and they're a free tool for you to use so that you don't have to be afraid. If I go into the doctor and I start talking about this, what are they going to make me do? This could be your starting point. It's a wellness tool and it takes about 30 minutes. We don't do walk-ins, so you do need to make an appointment. We want to know that you're coming. We want to have that one-on-one time for you. And it can create a baseline for the future too. Or if you're worried about it, some people come and they want to talk about somebody who wouldn't come, who needs to be screened. And that's fine too. And then the results can be shared with your physician or they can be just for you. The one benefit that, you know, we encourage you to share with your physician is we put it in your medical chart. That way, it's kind of a gentle reminder to them like, hey, I'm taking care of my health. Make sure you're checking on it. Because again, brain health is not something that's routinely discussed or checked, monitored at the clinic. And it is very easy to fake it for 15 minutes, if you will. If you have high vocabulary, you know, or know what to do in a social setting, it can easily be missed in a clinic appointment, especially if you're talking about the same topics. You know, your doctor only knows so much about you. They're going to talk about the same thing, and that's typically what they knew about your past. So it's easy to engage in that conversation where sometimes an outsider might have a different experience. So there's some wellness classes in addition to what the library has. I just did kind of some ADRC and pulled from the Spirituality Center. Just wanted to emphasize, you know, the resource there for that spiritual, emotional health. La Crosse Park and Rec also has a coping with grief and loss free program, and then staying active together. I talked about Boost Your Brain and Memory. We have a current class going on, but we usually do 1 or 2 a year. So you can always just get on the interest list. And then we have a new program. It'll actually get piloted in Holman in June, which is Brain Health and Dementia Awareness Month. But we'll slowly be expanding it to other places. But it's WITS workouts, and it's basically socialization and that cognitive challenge. Kind of some fun, ridiculous initiative. You should check it out. I wanted to just highlight our community coalition. And again, I talked about June as being Brain Health and Dementia Awareness Month. So there's going to be lots of opportunity for learning, education during that month. There's an event here, a book club discussion. So our Dementia Friendly Awareness Month is for the public. It isn't necessarily for people with dementia and their caregivers. They already have resources. That's a whole other, again, conversation of what's out there for people. What we're trying to do is get the people who are not impacted by it yet understanding what that means. So we have a coalition, and that's all. Thank you for coming.